Amazon is just beginning. Today we have a unique perspective where we talk about what that really means and how Amazon is taking over the world, and we talk with Chris Fryburger of nReach. Chris has over 20 years of experience with ad agencies, and he sees what is coming to Amazon as the beginning, kind of like the .com era. So excited to talk with Chris. I've never had anybody speak or talk about this subject like Chris does today. You're going to hear a unique perspective. Selling on Amazon is difficult. It's everything but passive income. I share videos like this one to help Amazon sellers on their journey. My name is Stephen Pope, and I'm the founder of My Amazon Guy. When Amazon turns your world upside down, tune into My Amazon Guy to land safely and grow your Amazon business. I am now joined by Chris. Thanks for coming on the My Amazon Guy podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to meet you, Stephen.
Well, Chris, you run a company that helps matchmake, and you see a lot of changes in the ecosystem in the last year. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're seeing with the magnitude of the boom and the rush to sell on Amazon?
Sure. So real quick, what nReach does is basically a vetted network of resources for all things Amazon. So I'm either talking to a seller brand all day or an agency, for example, or a provider to those sellers. And so it kind of gives me I believe it gives me a good perspective on the industry and where it's going. Maybe potentially even a unique perspective. And so that said, in speaking with the folks that do the Amazon all day, I find that they think that they may be behind, or it's late, or there's everybody's doing Amazon. But I really want to emphasize to your question that it is brand new. It is very analogous to the .com boom of 1997 or post Google launch 2001. That kind of environment, and it is very, very early. Very few people know how to sell on Amazon, what it entails, and I would even contend how to do it properly on top of that. There's good work being done and great work being done. But so that said, it is not easy. I want to make that very clear, and the opportunity is far greater than anyone or very few people have their arms around, I believe.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I talk on my podcast frequently about how Amazon is not passive income, and it's really hard work, and it's getting more complex. In our last podcast, we talked about the increase in complexities with another Chris, and so as you're having these conversations, I think you could add a lot of value to our audience in terms of trends, in terms of things that people are talking about and experiencing, or their pain points. In that regard, how easy or hard is it right now to find the Amazon skill set?
Excellent question. There are great agencies out there doing great work, and I would say they're full service agencies. Okay, so when you define an agency, there's different ways of drawing that circle, right? Some are more focused on the front end marketing side. Some also, maybe do some of the back end stuff as well. And so when you look at an agency, you want to have them to knock, check off as many of the boxes that you need to resolve on, to solve for Amazon. Okay. And emphasizing again, it's not easy. And so I would say, if I may, I speak with hundreds of agencies. I probably, after vetting them for all of their skill set, whether they actually do what they do, account management, project management, and the like, I actually would dwindle that down to a few dozen agencies right now that are actually doing well. Now, that said, the largest agency, 1P agency in this space, has about 150 employees right now. Okay. I come from 25 years of the ad agency business. Okay. The largest agency in that space has 10,000 employees. Okay.
So there's a lot of room to grow is what you're saying.
There is. And it's just beginning. I'm going to say that 4 times. Okay. During this podcast.
That's going to be the theme. It's just beginning. All right.
It is. And, again, think about 1997. And if you were the first people to figure out what HTML was, you made money making websites, and that's kind of what we're in right now, though it's far more complex than that. And so I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not, but I keep coming back to trying to paint this picture for your audience that even though you're in it all the time and you seem like this, this is old hat to you, and you run into other sellers all the time, and other agencies bump into each other, they are rainbow unicorns in outer space. Okay.
Rainbow unicorns in outer space.
Yeah.
Hey, but it's funny. I have to talk about, you can buy literally anything on Amazon. And one of my favorite things to talk about is you can buy unicorn meat. So here we go.
Wow. I don't even know about that, but yeah.
It's probably just spam. Just in a box with a pretty
or
pretty
horse. Yeah. Or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
All right. So when you got introduced to me from our previous guest, in fact, and when I was initially thinking about like how this podcast was going to go, I have to be honest. It's very different to hear the phrase that Amazon is just beginning. I didn't expect you to say that. Mm-hmm. And so let's impact that further, because I think that's enlightening, especially this. And I think you hit this point home really well in talking about, like, since I'm in the weeds on a daily basis in these accounts, it just feels normal to me, right?
Yep.
Like, oh, we got new policies and changes and you can't talk to your customers anymore. And I could go on with a dozen other problems sellers face on a daily basis right now.
Yeah.
Well, but perspective, right? You offer a very unique perspective. And so tell me a little bit more on why you feel like Amazon is just beginning as a platform.
Sure. So real quick, shout out to Chris Schipferling, your previous guest. I think the podcast came out today. I recommend that to everyone. He talked about somebody that's in the thick of it and is also seeing a lot of the capital movement in the space as well, which is also new. Also, just a quick mention, I think for perspective, a lot of people have not seen the PBS Frontline that came out about 8 months ago. It's a 2-hour special called Amazon Empire. It is fantastic. And I think, and I send that documentary out to a lot of the people I speak with, because even if you're in the industry and you miss that, it really gives you a perspective on the fact that Jeff is just getting started. Okay. His motivator is to get humanity off of Earth to save humans. Okay. He's going to consume e-commerce to fund that. Okay. That's what motivates the man. Okay. So that said, right now we have 15 marketplaces around the country, around the world. And there's how many countries? Okay. So he's just covering the globe right now. It's still in a land grab mode. That's why you don't have a proper development environment. They haven't stopped, they don't have, proper support for sellers. You have all those issues. In a way, they don't care because they're busy consuming the earth, and they will be consuming. I'll give you an example. Okay. In Brazil, who I was just on the phone with this morning. All right. Fledgling marketplace. They built a fulfillment center down there, and behind it are runways. A big pad of concrete. Okay. So what they're going to do is the purpose of the drones is to deliver in the Amazon, because, you can't deliver, it's 7 days over dirt roads to deliver to interior of Brazil. Okay. The number one marketplace there is Mercado Libre. Okay. If you order something on the Mercado Libre, it may or may not show up in 7 to 9 days. It may fall off the truck. Okay. That's the current e-commerce environment there, which Jeff is going to solve for with drones by just simply dropping it, ironically, into the Amazon. Okay. So I think
people are thinking about drones in the States. I don't think people are thinking about drones in Brazil's Amazon, literally. So this is very unique perspective. I don't think.
How do you deliver in the Sahara? Yeah. I mean, that's where he's thinking. And so obviously there's not a lot of, that's down the list of priorities, but his priority is planet Earth.
Like, get off the rock.
And
interesting.
The first thing that documentary mentions is him in I think it's grade school with his project, where he literally says the science project is, humans are consuming resources faster than we can, and his whole reason for starting Amazon was to get the money to build a rocket company to get us off the earth. So
we'll see if Elon Musk beats him to the punch. So I'm going to put a link to this PBS documentary in the show notes towards the top for those that are curious and want to go watch this.
It's mandatory. It's like the Frontline, for anybody that's familiar with, it really just ends up being the sort of the documented, final word, if you will. And so I recommend it for anyone who's in the space, just to give it perspective. To your question, it's extremely early in his process. Okay. He has not covered the earth yet. He hasn't conquered, he hasn't put Alibaba out of business, though their CEO is missing. right now. I don't know if you know that, but China.
I should did not know that. We did think about how Amazon feels like it's becoming Alibaba light at the moment.
Yep.
So I can see why he wants to take Alibaba out.
Exactly. But to that earth, or to that earth, to that end,
Earth, rock, rocket ship, whatever.
to that end, right? He's also lowering the barriers to go international. So I work for with large manufacturers that for them in the old days it was huge. They're Canadian based. To sell in the U.S. was huge for them. But now the barriers to go and sell in Brazil are next to nothing. And so what does that mean to a manufacturer or to a seller or like to be able to go international overnight almost? I mean, obviously it's more than that and there's more work to it, but for the most part it's zero compared to what it used to be. So I'm trying to to your question, it's just getting started. You can follow them around. If you're selling something, you can follow them around the globe. Thus you should have all your ducks in order on everything from marketing to accounting to fulfillment, and so on and so forth. None of which is quote unquote easy, but if you have the right partner and the right agency, they can help you get there. Okay. So
great perspective on how Amazon is just beginning. So I think that's great. All right. So when you talk about the Amazon marketplace landscape with these brands, what are you typically talking about with them?
There are no two conversations that are similar, other than
which is why you need a matchmaker, right?
Like, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
I'm also I joke I'm also kind of Mr. Wolf from Pulp Fiction,
sure.
Because I get a call like I got delisted, and I need to get back up, and what do? Well, I've got a guy for you, kind of thing. And so
that's the name, my Amazon guy, by the way.
There you go. I'm going to call my Amazon guy. Yeah.
I got a guy for that. It's the Amazon guy. All right.
There you go. And so I'm usually consulting that. I tend to take them, if it's of a brand, through 10,000 feet down, describe, make sure they understand the promise of Amazon and the picture and the importance of it. It is not Walmart. Okay. It's not getting in onto target.com. Those are things which have been very important to you as a brand and are also things you should do. But Amazon is completely different. Okay. Everything is different. And so I think I've said that again 4 times, is that I outline the hope and the dream for them and the perspective of what Amazon's going to be for them and why it's important. But then the next thing I convey to them is, hey, this isn't easy. Okay. And it's so important to you to get this done. In fact, it's the most important business decision, I would say, for anybody selling a product that they will ever make in their entire history.
I penned a long article a few years back called "If You're Not on Amazon, You're Irrelevant." And so when you talk about these big decisions, it brings me back to when I wrote that, because I do think selling on Amazon makes your business far more relevant, and it jettisons your opportunities in ways you would not have access to otherwise. And so I totally agree with you on this.
Yeah, and I would relevant is good. I would maybe it's going to perk more yours. It also makes you more valuable. Certainly post COVID, and again, I would recommend going. Yeah, I would recommend starting. The primer for this conversation is to listen to the previous podcast about the capital that's moving in the space, and there's a reason for that, right? Is brands that have post COVID, I would even say prior to COVID, that have figured out Amazon native brands. Like, of course, you had the first public offering with Anchor, the first native brand that come out of Amazon, which was a huge monumental thing. But brands that have figured out Amazon are now not dependent on the retail shelf, which just shrank 30%. I think the Merrill Lynch perspective that just came out last week said that Amazon is the only game in town. Okay, so if you're a brand that had a competitor on the shelf right next to you, okay, if you're the first mover to then figure out Amazon in this new marketplace, you may have gone in your space, maybe just outdistanced your competition. Okay, and so any brand that has figured out Amazon, their main source of revenue or a significant part of the revenues on Amazon, they're firing on most cylinders, is by default more valuable in this new market than the old market prior to COVID, or even before then. COVID just did a 10x on everything. Amazon, okay,
accelerated the plans, and that box is not reclosing. Definitely.
No, exactly, and they're actually thinking that a lot of that 30% of the retail shelf is probably missing is maybe permanent. Okay, and so obviously Amazon is again the only game in town, and so I try to convey that to the brands, that you if you figure this out, if you're a seller that figures this out, you again went from 2 to 3x to 4 to 5x, and I'm seeing those evaluations now, and I'm seeing brands selling for very nice, and it all depends on how much they figured out Amazon.
So how does one figure out Amazon?
Jeez, that's a tough question.
and you only have 30 seconds to answer.
Yeah, ready, set, go. No,
put it into a soundbite.
I would say that you would be mistaken to try and figure it out on your own. Okay, I think that's fair to say. I think you need help. And it may be in the form of an agency that does a lot of the things, though again, an agency probably is not going to do all the things you may need. You may need 2 or 3 agencies that cooperate to cover all of the basics, for instance. And so that said, how do you figure out Amazon? You find the experts that can conduct themselves. They have the bells and whistles and the tools, and they know the skills and all that stuff, but also has account management and project management, and can deliver what they're going to say, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of fly-by-night guys out there. There are a lot of smaller agencies, 1 or 2 person shops that do great work, but you have to match to your needs. So a Fortune 500 client should be looking for a larger agency that can conduct themselves in a certain way, and so on and so forth. And if you're a smaller seller, you might need a more affordable agency that does a little bit less. But regardless, get help, because the experts are the ones that are following this every day. Did you know that, guess what got canceled today? Amazon guy, did you know?
I actually do not know the answer to this.
Guess what got the hugest news of the day for Amazon? Guess what it is? They shuttered Amazon Pantry.
Interesting.
Yep.
Amazon
they tried
Pantry got canceled. All right.
Yep. They tried to take on, the 1-by-1 delivery thing, and they are now backing away, saying it's not profitable. And by the way,
I'm not surprised by this actually, because I have many clients that do grocery or otherwise, and man, the margins selling anything under $15 on Amazon is almost impossible.
It is. And by the way, there's one agency in the world that does Amazon Fresh and Whole Foods. And the reason is that because you have to come up through the food broker world or the food world, Kroger, the grocery world.
You need those connections.
Yeah, and then over to Amazon, because you'll be laughed out of the industry. You're speaking the wrong language. You don't have the connections. You have nothing. So there's one agency that has sprung out of a food broker, and I'll be happy to talk with anybody about who that is. And they're killing it. And that game, if you think Amazon's tough, Prime is tough, there's a huge chasm.
we have 2 clients that have been in the Fresh program. It is a foreign world. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So there again, you would have to have expertise that you hire for that. It would be impossible to even walk up to the door of Amazon Fresh and open it without help. So
I'm going to agree with you wholeheartedly on this. So I have focused my Amazon guy more on Seller Central than Vendor Central as a case example of what you're describing, because the worlds of vendor and seller are just so completely different, right? In Vendor Central, you're dealing with contract negotiation and fee management and logistics nightmares every day, and you can't even control your prices. On Seller Central, it's completely different. Yep. So we've sought out business specific to the Seller Central and really kind of honed in, tried to be a 10 out of 10 on the typical basics, like, traffic generation, conversion, you name it. The other problem I found is that I struggled to do any external traffic management into Amazon because the game was changing so quickly and so fast. So when you talked about engaging 2 or 3 agencies, and when I get on a call with people and tell them I'm full service Seller Central.
Yeah.
Right. And you might need to engage somebody who can drive external traffic into Amazon, because that game is so intense. So
sure.
Share any thoughts you have on that.
Yeah, please. I mean, there's a lot of things to cover, right? So there's a lot of things just within Amazon Prime, as you mentioned, optimization and your ad campaigns and all managing all that, which is a lot of work. Okay, but I have run into very few quote unquote agencies that are doing anything with Amazon influencer or associate or Amazon posts or Twitch or and Amazon would love to have brands participate in those the third iteration of those programs.
It would be nice if they'd make Amazon Live not just on a frickin' iPhone, and that would help.
They suck at everything except they're just huge, and they'll be back. They just what they did to the associate program? They cut half their commission fees overnight.
Nobody wants to do affiliates because of it.
Yeah, and then everybody pulled out, and they're like, "Well, why did it fail?" It's like, okay, well now they'll be back.
They death spiraled it on purpose.
Yeah, but nobody understands that few people understand that there's an equivalent of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. What am I missing? Well, again, YouTube, like in Twitch, and the ads that are around that as well, only offered in that realm. And I would also then say, and not to pick on that, but when you think of an Amazon agency, a full service agency, there are very few that take it all the way down to the luxury, right, of talking about what are we doing about social and what are we doing about influencer stuff, because they you get bogged down in the front half of stuff. That said, also what's important is off Amazon marketing. Okay, so you still need if you're firing on all cylinders, again, it's depending on how you define that. You're going to need a traditional agency to do a traditional social campaign on Twitter and Facebook and those type of, and probably should have a Google AdWords guy that's driving traffic to your listing. You should probably have a good Shopify or D2C presence, which also, because you want to convert them on Amazon and then have them reorder off of Amazon because it's cheaper. All of those things lift your SEO and believe it or not, your Amazon listing is then vice versa. And so when you actually start to find all of the things that you really should be firing on, you need a couple agents. You might need an agency to cover the first 3/4 of Amazon. You might work with an agency that just does influencer stuff because your other agency doesn't do it very well. You might need a content agency or a traditional agency or an AdWords agency offline as well, or off Amazon as well. And so there's a long list of things to hit. And I would say, this is my personal estimate, and speaking with I would say 75% of brands, more than that, on Amazon are not firing on all cylinders. Okay,
that's easy to agree to, by the way.
Yeah.
Anytime like somebody would, over the years, this is happening less today than it did 4 or 5 years ago, but like people would say, hey, there's a big brand, they're doing well on Amazon, we should follow what they're doing. And I'd be like, no, do not do that. Do not follow the big brands. They are clueless. They do not know how to build right A+ content. They don't know how to put their keywords into their listings. They don't know how to run an ad. Don't follow those guys. Follow the guy that you've never heard about in a closet somewhere, because he's the one that's cracked the code, right? But there are many, and that's kind of a separate conversation versus the how to find the right agency, right? But but basically what I was trying to impact is, I agree with you. I think most brands are clueless, or they're running, if we were just to guess and say there's 10 things you can do on Amazon, they're probably doing 3 correct very, very well. And that's why they're successful, but the other 7 suffer.
And just that's why you have the if I may, the Thrasses or the Perch or the Patterns of the world, the roll-up companies are coming along and they're buying up brands, and they just by turning a few more screws, they
double, triple, quadruple sales.
Exactly, and then they flip it. So it's just like home flipping. You add a little bit to it, add some value to it. You fire on maybe 5 or 6 cylinders versus 3 or 4 cylinders. The revenue jumps up, and then you sell them as a multiple. And so that's what that's what's going on right now, and that's what Ship for Links in the middle of. That kind of stuff.
So you had brought up earlier in the pod an interesting question for me, right? So I'm a 30-person agency today. How do I go from a 30-person agency to a 10,000-person agency? Curious.
Oh boy, that's a good question. So in the traditional agency model, you build up a book of business, which is basically hours, and you sell probably usually on a combination of your portfolio that you've accumulated. Your employees in the old world probably aren't even very valuable. You can get another AdWords guy, right? But you build that up, and there's a threshold. Usually it's at a book of $100 million. Okay, that's when that puts you up into the stratosphere, where the large guys, the Publis, the WPP, those guys have the big agencies will come and acquire you. Okay. If you're any smaller than that, they're probably not going to bother with you. It's not worth, simulating you. Okay. So that's your
Let's
traditional.
go Borg. All right.
Right. Right. No, it
We
very
talked about
much so.
getting off the rock today, so we're going all in on Star Trek references.
Oh, wow. We're going nerd. Okay. I'll have to come up with a Star Wars reference here in a moment.
Oh, that'll piss off the Trekkies then. All right, let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, Mandalorian. Awesome. All right. So, so that's a traditional exit for an agency. Okay. Now, as an agency owner, by the way, you're a collection of rainbow unicorns. Okay. Which is unusual. I mean, your value of an agency is astronomical right now. I have blank checkbooks from 2 buyers right now for an agency. Price is not an option, or not a consideration. So keep that in mind, Amazon guy.
I've been approached 5 times in the last year, and I got approached so many times, and I was like, "There's no way you're going to pay us what we're worth. I'm going to build this thing to hold," and I went all in on building the hold.
Yeah,
but like even yesterday, I got another text message. So like I know.
It's
crazy.
And so if you're an Amazon agency, do not sell right now. I mean, you took this long to get on top of the wave. And I would say this also with a brand and a seller. If you're on Amazon, you're already on the wave. Now you may be surfing, you could surf better, and you could maybe look better on the board and so on and so forth. But you're already there, and I would not sell yet. It's only going to get richer and richer and richer for the next decade. Again, think .com boom. Okay, how long did that take? About 10 years to flush out, right? A lot of people the early movers made a lot of money. The first agencies that figured out how to build websites made a lot of money. And so don't sell, because what you've built is, unless somebody comes along and writes you a check for, FU money. Okay.
F off money.
Yeah. We'll go with that. However you want to do it, whatever kind of person you are. So, so I know we're talking about agency owners, and that's a smaller segment of what you guys are, but it also goes for brands as well. I mean, I think when you get a call from one of these roll-up companies as a brand, they're going to lowball you. I would immediately, if you're interested in hiring, if you're interested in selling as a brand, and within like a year or 2, start planning now. Hire Chris Schifferling to shore up your books, to shop you out. You will get a less of a multiple if you go it alone. But it's a very, very, very target rich environment. Okay. And so all that said, how do you do that? Well, the nice thing about agencies in this world is you can do something more like what maybe a Pattern is doing. Okay. So there's 1P agencies like you, okay, that take a brand, they put them on Amazon with them, as them, and help them sell on Amazon. There's 3P agencies, and forgive me, some of these terminology is more agency specific, but a 3P agency is, hey, I'm going to be a wholesaler for you. I'm going to ask for exclusive rights to sell on Amazon, and give me your best price, and I'll shove product on. I'll just do whatever I do inward to sell as much product for me as your product that you've given me at a wholesale price. I'm going to go sell it for whatever I can get away with, as much as and go. That's extremely profitable too. And the nice thing as an agency, you have all the tools to do that tomorrow. Okay. There's a third option. One is now, okay, working with you brand, I love you so much. I love you so much that I want to put 20% equity stake.
Take a stake in it.
Yeah. Or, I want 100% equity stake. Okay. And then now, instead of getting paid your $5,000 a month, retainer fee, as an agency, as a 1P agency, now you're taking all those tools and building something that's going to sell for $5 million down the road. Okay. You guys, how much did you sell? I would ask this to your audience. Okay. Sure. People that are selling for other brands and are charging, a fee for that. How much did you charge your brand versus how much did you make them? Okay.
Big different numbers, right? Yeah. If you want to be in the question of making millions for yourself or somebody else, that's how yeah.
Right.
So we're currently in your first option. Your second option, so we help brands directly. We don't take a stake. Yep. The second option, I would refer out to like the brightideas.co model. And then your third option would be the Chris Schifferling option, where they take a stake.
Yep. The third is, good examples in that third would be like an Amify, but a Pattern does all of those things, right? And then, by the way, Pattern if you don't know, I believe personally is going to be the first billion-dollar company, true revenue billion-dollar company that comes out of the trillion-dollar company. I just think they're hitting on all of it. So I wave to Pattern. I have no relationship with them, no stake in the game, but out of admiration, I think of all the people that are doing it the best, I think it is Pattern, at least on those 3 cylinders. Okay. But yeah,
Pattern is not even on my radar. So now I'm like, whoa.
There is a top 100 list that came out at the end of the year. I think it's by Marketplace Pulse. I can give you the link to it. I'll send you that as well. These are the players that you should know. I think they use there's arguable how accurate the list is, but it's pretty good. And so that's two pieces of homework, that article and the frontline thing as well. But it is, it's just getting started. It's just getting started.
This is a thinker podcast, like a perspective changing podcast for me and hopefully our listeners and viewers, because when we first came out of the gate and talked about Amazon is just beginning. Well, as you kind of piecemeal that out, well, what does that mean? Well, it means that we're on a wave and we're on a rocket ship on the way out, getting off the rock here. And there's an impact and there's some decision trees. And if you make the right decisions at the right times, it's going to have certain payouts and certain benefits. And there's going to be some people that are going to be happy to ride the small wave. And there's going to be some people that want to get on the gigantic wave.
Of course. And, you may not be wired for those other things. You might like to work with a brand, closely and not, and be, help them and, on a one-to-one basis, which is great. Though I will say that billion-dollar valuations, again, the Thras and the Pattern got like 350 million on a cash on a billion-dollar evaluation. There's been 3 or 4 of those since the last 9 months. Obviously, those are billion-dollar companies. So the hard part of this is what you guys do. Okay, if you know how to get a brand onto Amazon and make it succeed and fire on all of those things, you are a rainbow unicorn, tootin' glitter. Okay, whatever you want to, whatever you want to use there, and your value is huge. And the reason of that is you are the only ones with keys that know how to do this thing. No one else does, and everybody needs those keys. And so just keep that in mind.
All right, so I think we've impacted that point home. So what's the next step? So should these brands go out and launch 10 more products? What should they be doing in your opinion, based on what you've seen?
Yeah, first and foremost, more Amazon. Okay, you have to, even though you polish that stone every day, keep polishing it. You can. There's always something more to do better on Amazon. Again, if you're not taking advantage, I think if you're complete, if you got down to, I'm doing posts, Amazon posts. Okay. That means you covered all the spectrum of all the things you need to get to that point. Okay?
We do that for our clients at My Amazon Guide, by the way.
Okay. So. Awesome. Cheers. So I would consider you a full service Amazon agency. Okay. If you do that. Okay. There's a lot of things in there. Like, are you soliciting for feedback, and are you nurturing all the aspects of customer service? Are you what does your A+ content look like? Obviously, and that's a thing that changes all the time. What does your product look like? Do you have videos? Your content's on and on. Okay, it's never ending. But if you're at least treating some of that along the way, you're ahead of 25%. You're ahead of 75% of the brands on there. Okay.
Totally agree.
Okay. And your space might be crowded, but if you do those things, I guarantee those other guys are not doing those things. Okay. So there's opportunity to outdistance. I'm talking to some brands that have been, fourth in their market for 75 years, and they're using Amazon to get to be third in their market.
When I get on a call with a brand that has, like you mentioned, been around for a while, and they're like, who is this brand? How are they beating me? How do these guys have 10,000 reviews? I struggle with those questions, or how to give them a great answer. What would you tell them?
Well, if they have 10,000 reviews and they got them, obviously if they got them overnight, then they're
gaming the system in that world, sure. But take a, just think back this a little bit further, but like a real world brand, they're in Walgreens, they're in Walmart, whatever. And they're like, how does somebody nobody have ever heard of come out of nowhere and in a year or two make Amazon work?
Right. Well, I'm in Cincinnati. That means, instantly in most people's mind, that means Procter and Gamble's headquarters is here. Okay. I've worked with them quite a bit. There was a guy named Dollar Shave Club that handed them their
Nobody
hat.
ever heard of that.
Yeah.
No.
They handed Gillette their hat. Okay.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Because of the online play that P&G was too slow to recognize. Okay. Amazon is without a doubt the next play, and those behemoths, I'll be honest with you, most brands, I use that 75% aren't doing it well, but actually 75% of the product in the world is not even on Amazon yet. So, that said, your competitor might not be on there. Like right now, I'm talking to one of the largest spark plug manufacturers in the world. They own the shelf in the auto supply industry, the Pet Boys and the like. Their competitor, who's actually number 4 in the market, was the first to go on Amazon and now has all of the sales, majority of the sales are off, outdistancing them on reviews because they were a first mover. They're firing on all the cylinders better than this big behemoth who can't make decisions fast enough, right? And now in the Amazon world, they're number 1. And so it's figure more Amazon, more and more Amazon.
This is a very interesting, unique podcast. Amazon's just beginning, more Amazon. These are not the phrases that generally are uttered in the space. Usually it's diversify, and Amazon will suspend you at any point in time, so you better diversify.
True.
Like that's the chat we usually get. So very unique perspective. A lot of this very unexpected and interesting. All right, so as we wrap up the podcast, Chris, for those that want to get in touch with nReach or learn more about you guys, where should they go?
Yeah, we're nReach.com it's an N, no I. I'm Chris at nReach.com. Look me up on LinkedIn. I love to have conversations around this stuff. That's what I do all day. Would love to hear about your pain points and help you on any aspect whatsoever.
Well, thanks again for coming on the My Amazon Guy podcast, Chris.
Thank you, Stephen. And I need to know more about your agency, so we have another conversation to have as well.
Sounds like a plan. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Hit that subscribe button. And thanks for listening to the My Amazon Guy podcast. This was the My Amazon Guy podcast with Stephen Pope. Each episode helps you grow your sales on Amazon through ideas on traffic and conversion rate improvements. Hit that subscribe button right now to tune in each week. And if you need more help, go to myamazonguy.com.